What is going on, guys? EGM coming at you with a brand new video, and today we're going to be talking about my predictions for UFC 213 taking place this Saturday, July 8th. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I'm actually really excited because I think this is a great card. It's pretty stacked. I think there's going to be some really amazing fights on this card. The first fight I want to talk about is Anthony Showtime Pettis versus Jim Miller. This is actually Anthony Pettis' return to the lightweight division. He was the former champion at that weight class, lost his belt to Rafael Dos Anjos, and then proceeded to lose two more times to Eddie Alvarez and Edson Barbosa. And he moved down to featherweight, where he won his featherweight debut against Charles Oliveira via rear naked choke, and then he was gifted a title opportunity for an interim belt against Max Holloway, where he was TKO'd. So now he's moving back up, and he has Jim Miller in front of him. Jim Miller is a durable veteran. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Over almost half of his wins come via submission, and he's a former Division I college wrestler. He's coming off a fight of the night performance against Dustin Poirier, where he was edged out. Dustin Poirier beat him by a majority decision, but it was a really close fight. And he's been around. He's fought some top-level competition. He's not necessarily a top contender, but this is a perfect fight for Anthony Pettis to kind of come back into the lightweight division, get his feet wet. Now, if Jim Miller wants to have any type of success, it's going to be on the ground. If he can get the fight to the ground, Anthony Pettis makes a dumb mistake, Jim Miller can capitalize on that. That's the only chance that I see of Jim Miller being able to win this fight. On the other hand, we have Anthony Pettis. Now, if Anthony Pettis wants to have some success, if he wants to win this fight, he's going to have to keep it standing. Anthony Pettis is the much better striker. He's very creative with his kicks, his punches. He has excellent hand speed, excellent movement. So I think that Jim Miller is going to come out. He's going to look to put the pressure, because if you look at, the previous fights of Anthony Pettis in the lightweight division, when he lost to Edson Barbosa, Eddie Alvarez, Rafael Dos Anjos, those are guys that put constant pressure. They're always in your face. They try to make the fight gritty, dirty. Now, Anthony Pettis struggles under pressure. He folds under pressure. He's not too good when you're in his face. And I think Jim Miller is going to have the approach, but I just don't think that he's good enough to be able to beat Anthony Pettis. I do see Anthony Pettis finishing this fight. I do see him either knocking out or TKOing Jim Miller. I think that Anthony Pettis is the better fighter. Even at this point in his career now, it's not necessarily can he beat Jim Miller, but can he still compete with the top lightweights in the world? And I think this is a good stepping stone for him to get started. Now, next up, we have a heavyweight matchup between the former heavyweight champion of the world and current #1 contender, Fabricio Werdum, versus his #3 ranked heavyweight in the world, Alistair Overeem. Now, they both have very different fighting styles, but they also have one thing in common. Now, this fight is viewed by many as a #1 contender fight, or in other words, a fight that determines who's going to get knocked out by Stipe Miocic again. But in all seriousness, this is going to be a very entertaining fight. On one hand, we have Fabricio Werdum, who hasn't stepped inside the octagon in about 9 months or so. He did fight after he lost his belt to Stipe Miocic. He fought Travis Brown. He beat him with a unanimous decision victory. Now, in Werdum's fight against Stipe Miocic, when he lost his belt, he didn't really get an opportunity to implement his game plan, because for some smart reason, he thought he could outbox a boxer, and he got slept. Now, Fabricio Werdum is far from a striker. He doesn't really choose to stand and exchange punches. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so he prefers to get inside the clinch. He prefers to grapple, and he prefers to take the fight to the ground. Now, Alistair Overeem is a very good all-around heavyweight. He's an excellent kickboxer, excellent accuracy with his punches, and he moves pretty well for a heavyweight. And also, his technique with his knees and elbows is off the charts. Now, Alistair Overeem has almost 60 professional fights. He has 42 victories, and 19 of those wins come by knockout, and another 19 come by submission. So he can win a fight in a variety of different ways. Now, I don't think he would prefer to go to the ground with Fabricio Werdum, as I think that would favor Fabricio Werdum. Now, look for Fabricio Werdum to come out in this fight and be very hesitant and shoot for takedowns early and try to get it to the ground as soon as possible, because Alistair Overeem did have some success on the feet against Stipe Miocic when he had his crack at the UFC title. He did drop Stipe Miocic with a straight right, I believe it was, and he had an opportunity to finish the fight, but he just couldn't get the job done. Now, as good as a striker as Alistair Overeem is, he has 15 losses in his career, and 10 of those have been by knockout. So he doesn't have the strongest chin in the world. So there is a possibility that Fabricio Verdum could land a good punch, a solid punch, and hurt Alistair Overeem. I just don't think that he's going to look to do that. I think he's a bit traumatized from what happened with Stipe Miocic, but I do see Fabricio Verdum being able to take down Alistair Overeem, kind of beat him up on the ground, maybe finish him by submission, but I do think this fight is going to go the distance, and I do think that Fabricio Verdum is just not going to let himself get hit and do everything in his power to take the fight to the ground, and I think he's going to come away with a unanimous decision victory and earn another crack at Stipe Miocic. Now, this is the fight that I'm most excited to see. We have the number 1 middleweight contender in the world, Yoel Romero, and the number 3 ranked middleweight, Robert Whittaker, squaring off for the interim championship. Now, the winner is going to be able to challenge for the actual belt and fight Michael Bisping once he comes back from injury. Now, we have Yoel Romero, who's a freestyle wrestling Olympian. He competed in the 2000 and 2004 Olympics. He has a 13-1 professional MMA record, 11 of those wins coming by knockout, and he's actually 8-0 inside the UFC. He's beaten some stiff competition like Lyoto Machida, Jacare Souza, Chris Weidman, Tim Kennedy, Derek Brunson. The list goes on and on. Now, he's obviously, his wrestling is off the charts. He's one of the best wrestlers, not just in that division, but in the UFC. He's very fast, and he's very explosive. I mean, the man is extremely versatile and athletic for being 40 years old. The last time he stepped into the octagon was back in November at UFC 205, where he absolutely obliterated Chris Weidman with a flying knee. It was kind of a snooze fest the first 2 rounds, but in the 3rd round, Chris Weidman came out. He faked as if he was going to shoot for a takedown, came back up, and then a few seconds later, he actually shot, and Yoel Romero just caught him with a perfectly timed knee and busted Chris Weidman's head up. So that's the kind of explosiveness that I expect to see from a Yoel Romero. Now, one of the weaknesses that he has is his gas tank. He does not have very good conditioning. Now, that's funny to say because in the last 7 fights that he has had in the UFC, he's either won by a decision or he's finished the fight in the 3rd round. But this is not a 3-round fight. This is a 5-round fight. Now, we've seen him gassed out time and time again in the 3rd round. He's actually been accused of cheating. Like, there was one instance where he stayed in his corner a bit longer than he should have in that fight against Tim Kennedy. Tim Kennedy was extremely ticked off because he was actually winning the fight. He had actually hurt Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero goes to the corner at the end of the 2nd round. He stays there a bit too long. The referee has to really come up to him and literally pull the chair off from under him and force Yoel Romero to keep on fighting. And then Yoel Romero lands a clean punch and ended up finishing Tim Kennedy. Now, this is not a 3-round fight, as I said. This is a 5-round fight for an interim belt. We have not seen Yoel Romero go 5 rounds. Now, on the other hand, we have Robert Whittaker, who's 13 years younger than Yoel Romero. He's excellent. He has a black belt in karate, a black belt in Hapkido. He's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a really good young all-around fighter and a rising star. He's hungry. He's coming off of 2 brilliant victories against Derek Brunson and absolutely mauling Jacare Souza. He absolutely destroyed Jacare Souza on the feet. And I kind of see that if Yoel Romero can't get to this fight to the ground sooner than later, Robert Whittaker is going to piece him up because Robert Whittaker is one of the best boxers in that division right alongside Kelvin Gastelum. So if Yoel Romero can't dictate the pace and can't put the pressure and use his wrestling and just bully Robert Whittaker, then he's not going to win the fight. Now, I'm not saying that Yoel Romero can't land a shot that can hurt Whittaker because he does have that power, but I just trust Robert Whittaker's boxing more than I trust Yoel Romero. Now, if at any point in the fight is standing up for more than 2 minutes, Yoel Romero is going to get knocked out. And I do see it going that way, and I see Robert Whittaker getting the TKO in the 3rd round. Now, last but not least, we have the Women's Bantamweight Championship fight between the champion Amanda Nunes and the number 1 ranked contender Valentina Shevchenko. Now, we all know Amanda Nunes after she completely demolished Miesha Tate at UFC 200 and when she pieced up Ronda Rousey inside 3 minutes at UFC 207. Now, the scary thing about Amanda Nunes is her striking, is her boxing, is the power that she possesses in those 2 hands. Now, if you look at girls like Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey, right, the 2 former champions, if you see them on their feet, once they get hit, they kind of crumple up. That's what you saw what happened when Amanda Nunes landed a clean shot on them. They kind of just fold up and they don't know what to do. Now, Amanda Nunes is not like that. Now, she just possesses so much power that it's really hard for most of these women in that division to take those punches. Now, she has fought Valentina Shevchenko. Now, that fight did go the distance. Amanda Nunes had her way in the first 2 rounds. Now, I know Amanda Nunes is known for her boxing and being able to hurt people on the feet. Now, But the success that she had against Valentina Shevchenko was on the ground. It was actually on the ground. She did have more of the more dominant positions on the ground. At one point, she was on Valentina Shevchenko's back and nearly sunk in a rear naked choke multiple times. Now, she also did bust up Valentina Shevchenko with some elbows, with some punches. But in the third round is when we kind of saw Nunes kind of gas out. Valentina Shevchenko excels in the clinch. So once she got Amanda Nunes to engage in the clinch, she landed a few clean knees and a hard elbow that stunned Amanda Nunes. And throughout that entire third round, Valentina Shevchenko turned the tables. She was landing the cleaner punches, the harder shots, landing a few more kicks and knees to the body and to the head, because Valentina Shevchenko excels in the clinch. She has an extensive background in Muay Thai, in kickboxing, and boxing. So Valentina Shevchenko is on the same level of striking as Amanda Nunes, but I just don't know if she possesses the same kind of power. Now, a lot of people like to assume or believe that if that fight, when they first fought, if the fight was actually a 5-round fight, that Valentina Shevchenko would have won rounds 4 and 5. Now, obviously, it was only a 3-round fight. So in this Saturday, we're going to see the fight go 5 rounds. And we're going to see if Amanda Nunes has improved her conditioning or if she's going to get gassed out the same way. Because if she does get gassed out, then Shevchenko is going to be able to land more shots, more punches, more kicks, knees, because she's much more of a patient fighter. She chooses her shots very well, whereas Amanda Nunes likes to come forward, be aggressive, put the pressure, and try to knock you out as soon as she can. So it's going to be interesting to see how this fight plays out, how different it's going to be from the first time around that they went at it. But I just think that Amanda Nunes is going to land a shot that Valentina Shevchenko will not be able to eat. Now, there's two ways this fight can go. Amanda Nunes goes after her early when rounds 1 and 2. Shevchenko survives. Amanda Nunes gasses out, and then Shevchenko has her way. Now, the other way that this is going to go, or this can go, is that Amanda Nunes is going to land that shot and put Valentina Shevchenko to sleep. Now, I personally think that Amanda Nunes is going to land that shot and hurt Shevchenko and put her away. But I don't think that it's going to be in the first round or early second. I think it's going to be in the third round. Now, how can that be if I just said that Amanda Nunes doesn't have that much of a good gas tank? Now, I think that she's going to come out and she's going to pace herself. Now, she trains with a very good team. I think she's going to come up with the proper game plan. She's going to pace herself. She's not going to waste too much energy in the early rounds and eventually land that shot in the third round and put Valentina Shevchenko to sleep. That's all I have for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and see you guys in the next video. Thank you.